but, you know, we're going to teach you principles that we live by. Amen? So let's get started on today's lesson. This is the last lesson on how to handle conflict and fighting fair in a marriage. Like I told you at the beginning of the lesson, is that when you have two people from two different backgrounds, both bringing two different experience to a scenario, conflict is inevitable. You're going to have conflict and you're going to have arguments. But the point you want to do is get to a point where you're arguing constructively, and you're not tearing each other down. You're not beating each other up. You're not eating away at each other's confidence, but you are speaking life to the person, and you're just getting your point across. So I wrote down some points that me and my wife have tried to live by to help us fight fair in an argument. And we exercise these points whenever we have a disagreement in a marriage, because you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have disagreements. I don't want people to ever think that you're not going to ever have disagreements. That stuff you see on TV, and I know how it is on TV, you know, and I got to tell this joke. My wife and I, we was watching this love scene one time. Went to a movie. It wasn't anything X-rated. It was just a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I think it was How Stella Got Her Groove Back, and I think she was in the shower, and it was the shower was steaming, and it was just a great love scene. And me and my wife, we looked at each other, and he's like, "That's not really how it happens," you know. So I know what you see in Hollywood, and I know what you see on TV, and then you go into a marriage expecting what you see to be implemented in your home. That's not a reality. That's not a reality. But here are some rules, some regulations, some guidelines to help you handle conflict in a home when those things happen. Number one rule that me and my wife live by is that we don't keep score in a marriage. We don't keep score in a marriage. Years ago, I used to play basketball with my friends all the time, and we used to play a game called 21. You shoot the ball, and then once you make 2 buckets, you go to the free throw line. You get a chance to make 3 free throws. You make 3 free throws in a row. Then you come back out and you get a chance, opportunity to score again. First one to 21 wins the game. One of the objectives to the game is that each person is keeping up with everybody's score in the game. And every now and then, we'll do what we call a score check. What you got? I got 6. What you got? I got 10. What you got? I got 15. Okay, then you'll know kind of pretty much where everybody is at. When you're in a marriage, you cannot operate in that principle. You cannot keep score in a marriage. What do we mean by that? Well, you did this last time. Well, you did that last time. Well, you did this time. Well, you did that this time. You did this. You can't do that. You cannot keep score in a marriage. Whenever you have a conflict, you have to deal with that conflict that you're dealing with and finding out what is causing this particular conflict to take place. But remembering something that happened 2 weeks ago, and remember the last argument that you had, and remember what happened last time, and remember when we used to date, and remember this, you're keeping score in a marriage. You have to be fair and let that go and deal with the situation that you're dealing with right now. Number 2, here's one of the, when I take people through marriage counseling, I always ask this question. Number 1, don't keep score in a marriage. Number 2, I always ask them, when you're in a conflict, do you want to win? Do you want to be right? Or do you want peace? Do you want to win? Do you want to be right? Or do you want peace? Which one of those 3 that you want? And most men, I have to be embarrassed to say this, we always say we want to be right. You know, I want to be right. I want her to see it my way. That's not always the best option to take. That's not always the best option to take. Wanting to be right. Because if you want to be right, you'll end up being wrong. What do you mean by that? You'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you are right. And that means sometimes you can use insults to make sure that you're right. Sometimes you can use harsh words to make sure that you're right. Sometimes your behavior, the silent treatment, just to make sure that you are right. So do you want to be right? Do you want peace? Or do you want to win? And ultimately, you know what I want in my home? And everybody should strive for this. You should want peace. You should want peace. Well, Pastor George, I totally disagree with that, because that means that sometimes I got to go along just to get along. And sometimes if I keep amplifying her behavior or amplifying his behavior, she'll never see the area of her ways. No, 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 no. That's not what the word says. The Bible says this: vengeance is mine, said the Lord. He said, I'll repay. The Bible also says this: if I hold my peace, if you hold your tongue and allow God to work on the situation, instead of you trying to fix the situation, you'll be absolutely amazed at what God can do. Now, husbands, I'm telling you, this is a surefire way. I'm telling you, sometimes I've had to hold my tongue, and I knew that I was right, but I had to hold my tongue because I wanted peace. I never wanted to eat away at my wife's confidence. I never wanted to use any type of harsh words towards her. Never wanted to do that. So I had to hold my peace. And I'm telling you, it may take a day, it may take a couple of hours, but I can't tell you how many times my wife would come back to me and say, honey, I was wrong. I can't tell you how many times I have to go to her and say, sweetie, I was wrong. I apologize for that. Number 3, you cannot fight ghosts. This is a surefire thing when my wife really had to work on. You cannot fight a ghost. Why you can't fight a ghost? Because you can't see it. You don't know where it is. In other words, my mother used to tell me this story all the time. She would say, honey, my mom would say, Peanut, my nickname is Peanut. She would say, when my sister would argue, she would say, stop burying the hatchet. And I never knew what that means. But later on, when I got older, she explained to me that the hatchet, she said, what happens is people go and bury a hatchet in the old farming days. But what they would do is they will only bury the head of the hatchet, and the stick will always stay out of the ground. They will only bury the head of the hatchet. And whenever they need it, they will be able to locate it because the head of the arm of the hatchet was sticking out of the ground. Well, it's the same thing in a relationship. You can't bury the hatchet. And then when you get in a situation where you're losing or you're wrong, you thought you buried that thing, but then you go back and get that thing that you said that you buried. You can't argue against a ghost. You can't argue against a skeleton. You can only deal with the situation that's right here in your hand. I got 2 more minutes. Let me finish these points. The next point is watch your words. Watch your words. Me and my wife, we've been together for 19 years. And she would tell you, I've never used profanity at my wife. I've never used profanity at my children. I never curse them out. Never do that. Never call your wife. It's amazing. I've seen men do this. Never call your wife a bitch. Why would you call your wife, the woman that you love, why would you call her a female dog? Why would you call your wife a whore? Why would you use F word, the F bomb, when it comes to your wife? F this, I'm done with this, F this. Why would you say that? Proverbs 18:21 says, life and death is in the power of the tongue. When you speak that word, you give that word life. Never watch your words. And so under this, I put 2 notes, 2 things that people need. God, I'm running out of time. 2 things that people need. Number 1, men need respect, and a woman needs security. Men need respect, and a woman needs security. I could teach a whole lesson on respect because our whole shape of what respect is totally wrong. It's totally wrong on what respect should look like. But men need respect and women need security. Once you start letting those words, those F-bombs and those B words and those whore words, all those words come out of your mouth towards your wife and your children, you're eating away at her security. You're eating away at her security. Your wife should feel so secure. I'm in my 40s, and my wife feels like when we go out of town and we travel sometime, I have to tell her, honey, what? You know, she tells me, she said, honey, I know you'll protect me. Honey, I know you'll take care of me. I'm not worried about somebody doing something to me. Your wife should feel that secure in your relationship and in your marriage. And my wife honors me. My wife honors me. I know that without a doubt in my mind. But when you start using harsh words and hard language, you eat away at at that. And the last point I want to make is, what do you do when you don't see eye to eye? I got 1 minute left. What do you do when you don't see eye to eye? There'll be times, I have to tell you, there'll be times when you don't see eye to eye. You know, you don't see it her way, she don't see it your way. And it's just a brewing is still there. So what do you do in those moments when you can't see eye to eye on something? Depending on the severity of it, number one, I always say, put that thing on the shelf. Be willing to put it on the shelf. In other words, let it sit there. Sometimes you may not need to deal with the topic right now because it's kind of hot. So you may not need to deal with it. So you may want to put it on the shelf and just hold off on that thing for a moment. The second thing is, find you somebody to talk to. Now, I have some rules for when you're trying to find somebody to talk to somebody. Number one, you don't need to talk to the man and the woman on your job. Okay? Because the man and the woman on your job want to sleep with you. I just have to be honest. That's what they want. They want some sex. Okay? So they'll say whatever they want to say to have sex with you. Oh, yeah, he ain't right. Oh, yeah, she ain't right. Yeah, they'll agree with you. Yeah, they'll agree with you because they want some sex. So you don't want to talk to the man and the woman on your job. You know, the one that always sees it your way, you know, always doing things. You don't want to talk to that person. Number two, you don't want to talk to that family member. Now, me and my wife, we have a rule in our home. We don't talk to family members. Now, this rule came from my dad. My dad told me, he said, son, you know, when I first got married, he said, I don't want you bringing your problems to my home. I said, why, Dad? He said, because once it's over, you and your wife, y'all will forget about it. But me and your mother will always remember. And he said, I always want to see Kim one way. He said, I want to see her one way. He said, I want to see her the way that she's a wonderful person. I want to see her that way. So keep family members out of your business. Now, if you have a family member, like I have a family member, my brother Jonathan, I can talk to my brother Jonathan. My wife can talk to my brother Jonathan. The reason being is because Jonathan loved the both of us the same. And he's not going to give me one way to try to up Kim, and he's not going to give Kim one way to up her. You understand what I'm saying? He's a fair and impartial family member. But those are rare. Those are rare. If you have that family member, both of you all should feel comfortable talking to that person. Lastly, don't talk to the person that's been divorced 10 times. You're trying to keep your marriage together. So why would you talk to somebody that can't get it right? So don't talk to the person that's been divorced 10 times. And lastly, you want to talk to somebody that has what I call some mileage on their life. Talk to somebody that has some mileage on their life. There's a scripture, it says this. It says there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So sometimes your husband and wife, you can't see it eye to eye. You see it one way, she see it another way, and it's just still that little conflict there. Putting it on the shelf doesn't work. Find you somebody to talk to. Find you somebody to talk to. But both of you feel confident in that person to talk to that person. And I always say one rule that me and my wife live by, we're going to find somebody that got a little mileage on their life, and that's been proven. Proven. What I mean by that, I like the way you treat your wife. I've never seen you dog your wife out. I've never seen you use profanity at your wife. I love the way that you talk to her. I love the way you handle her. And my wife, she's the same way with us, okay? So God bless you guys. I went a little bit longer today because this was the last message that we ministered on how to handle conflict. Number one, remember, don't keep score in a marriage. Number two, ask yourself, do you want to be right? Do you want to win? Or do you want peace? And most of us, we should shoot to strive for peace. Number three, you can't fight a ghost. So stop burying the hatchet. Stop burying the hatchet. Deal with the conflict that's right there, right now, and handle it with care. In other words, guard your words. Don't talk down on your wife, and never use profanity at your spouse. Don't use profanity at your spouse. Don't drop F-bombs, calling her B's and calling her hoes, and women, you calling him all kind of N-words. Don't do that. But you have to lift one another up, because once you do that, you start losing respect for the man, and the woman, she starts losing security. And lastly, when you can't find a conflict, find you somebody to talk to, somebody that you trust, somebody that's been proven. God bless you. We'll see you next week.